and welcome to A Book in 5 Minutes. My name is Lindsay Milner and I'm a training and development consultant working mainly with non-profit organisations to help them to create awesome workplaces. And while I've been doing that work, I have read a great deal of books, and I thought it might be interesting to share some of the insights that I've gained from those books with you. Mostly I read books on business development, personal development, effective management and books on thinking. But this week's book is actually something slightly different. I was looking up a reading list. The British Psychological Society does a series of interviews with psychologists and asks them what one book do they recommend that psychologists read. And in that list, there were a couple of fiction books. So this week's book is actually one of those fiction books. And thanks also to Ryan for reminding me that I was actually going to do this. I'd kind of forgotten and it fell off the radar. So this week's book is The Fall and Rise of Reginald Perrin by David Nobbs. It was written in the 1970s, 1975, I think. And was a TV series back then, starring Leonard Rossiter. And there was also a remake of the TV series in about 2009, 2010, starring Martin Clunes. So I'd seen bits of the series, but I'd never kind of been a huge fan and watched the whole thing from beginning to end. But the psychologist who recommended this book said that it gives a really fascinating insight into the world of work, into workplace. So obviously from that point of view, I felt, yeah, it could be something of interest to me and of interest to other people who are interested in the psychology of the workplace. So I read it. Having never read it before, I read it. And it turns out and I rarely read fiction these days, and it turns out it's trickier to review fiction because you don't want to give away the ending for people who haven't read it. And although I was a little bit familiar with the TV series, there were bits in it that I knew well. And I think for that reason, it took me a little bit longer to actually get into the book. But then once I got to the bits where new stuff was coming out, I was actually I really need to see how this ends now. So I don't want to give away the ending. So that, as I say, makes it a bit trickier for me to review the book. It's really funny. I mean, the book is probably funnier than the TV series in my view. If you're the kind of person who prefers books to films and TV series, then you probably would enjoy the book more than the TV series. All that said, however, I haven't even told you what the book's about, really, have I? Yeah. The central point of the book is it's a guy, Reginald Perrin, who is having a midlife crisis and he fakes his own death. And obviously his work is a factor in that, and there are some really funny portraits of the rubbish that goes on at work. But for me, the book wasn't really about the workplace. It was about him and his life. It was about his home life as much, if not more, than his work life. So I don't feel that I actually really learned anything about the psychology of the workplace from reading this book. And I can't really see that anybody else would either. It was an entertaining diversion, and if you are looking for books that are entertaining to read without necessarily learning anything from it, I mean, there's stuff in there that you can analyse if you're an English lit person and you like to analyse character and things like that. There is plenty in there, but that's not really my thing. I don't particularly enjoy doing that in terms of fiction and literature. I'm more of a hands-on practical person, so I found this book an interesting diversion, but I don't think I really learned anything from it. That's probably my main summary. So that is The Fall and Rise of Reginald Perrin by David Nobbs. A bit of a diversion this week, but maybe back onto the heavier stuff next week. If if you're interested in books like this, or books on workplace culture, productivity, business development, personal development, then please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I look forward to seeing you next week for a book in 5 minutes. Bye.